Hello and welcome to our live event today. Hope you are having a good day so far, and well, welcome back. We are here again just to support you throughout your uncertainty, and so we are again here with another topic, and we have a special guest with us tonight, and this is Mel Johnson. Hi Mel, how are you feeling tonight?
Hi, I'm very good, thank you. The sun has been shining today, so all good.
Happy to hear that. That's definitely good. And it's always a little bit more, you feel more positive when the weather is also sun is shining, right? So happy to have you with us. And I would like to remind everyone that, of course, all those events have been brought to you thanks to our ambassadors and partners. And today you have a chance to meet one of our ambassador and partner as well, as Mel Johnson also supports our initiative. And thanks to her as well, we are able to go ahead with the events. All the other ambassadors and partners you can see right here. Some of them you already are familiar with. So as always, huge thanks for their support. And to let you know, of course, we will start off with a short introduction from Mel, and then with the most common questions. And right after that, it will be time for your questions. So as always, don't get discouraged, and just go ahead and type in all of the questions so that Mel can help you out a bit. And we definitely have a very important topic, which is solo motherhood using donor conception. And Mel is actually the founder of the Stork and I. She's also a speaker, coach, and therefore she will be able to help you out. I am 100% sure about that. So don't miss that chance, and go ahead and type in all of your questions as well. And this is recorded, of course, so you will still have a chance to rewatch it in the next few days. We will upload it on our website. And I guess that is it from me at this point. I hope you can hear me and Mel loud and clear. So as always, please let me know about that so we can begin. Mel, are you ready to start with your introduction?
I am. Thank you so much.
To hear
So
that.
hi, my name's Mel Johnson. As mentioned, I have a company called The Stork and I, which is a coaching company for solo mums. I am a solo mum myself, so I have a 2-year-old daughter that I had using IVF with donor sperm in Manchester Fertility Clinic. And when I went through the process myself, I felt quite alone in my circumstances. So I wasn't alone. I've got an amazing support network around me, but I didn't know anyone else who was in the same situation I was, or anyone else who was using donor conception to become a solo mum. So anyway, I was a qualified life coach, and I decided to set up the Stork and I and specialise the coaching for other women in the same situation. So that's how I started. And yeah, my absolute passion is to make sure that no other woman feels alone on this journey, and that everyone's empowered to understand the options that are available to them. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. And I'm here today to answer questions about donor conception. Of course, I'm not the medical expert, so if it's medical questions, then I would absolutely advise to speak to the clinic. But I will try my best to answer everything else that anyone is interested in.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Mel, again for that introduction. And yes, we will first start with the most common questions, and then remember to type in your questions so that Mel can help you out. And the first question is, so what support network will I need in place to be able to manage solo?
So yeah, this is a common question that I get from virtually everybody, and of course it absolutely depends on you. So everyone is different. People need different levels of support, and I think one of the things that I say to people is you need to be able to know that you can do it on your own. But you don't have to do it on your own. You can set up a support network to help you to make things easier for you. So there is absolutely ways of setting up a really great support network so that many women come back to me to say, I actually feel more supported than some of my friends in a couple because I've really built this amazing support network. So what I help people with is how to build that support network, almost like a bit of an onion diagram. The people you need in the middle, like the absolute key supporters who will be there for you, the first people you call in an emergency, that sort of person. Then you've got your local people, so who lives close to you and can get to you quickly and is there in close proximity. You've then got more of like maybe your oldest best friends, but maybe aren't there close by you, but they can offer you emotional support, or they can maybe come and be, come and stay with you and offer you support at various stages of time. And then there's paid support. So depending on your financial situation, there's lots of different options to pay for. You can pay for a doula, you can pay for like a night nurse to come and help you overnight, you can pay for childminders, for nursery, you can pay for a cleaner. So lots of different things of people to help you in your life to make it easier. And then of course there's online support. So one of the things that I absolutely love about this community is the online support that's available, and that people getting together in the same situation, chatting about their circumstances and supporting each other through it. So I have a support group called the Stork and I Mum Tribe. There's 800 women from around the world on there, and they ask each other questions, provide support, they have meetups. Yeah, lots of online support, and sometimes that turns into, face support if you live in close proximity. So one of the things that I would say is when I started on my journey, I moved to a new area, so I didn't know anybody, and I've set up a brilliant support network that is that now I have very good support. So I can try to reassure people by saying that you can build that from scratch if you need to. I won't go into all the details now, but I have lots of ways and hints and tips of building that network up from scratch. So it's personal, but there's ways you can do it. And I think one of the key things is identifying which sort of support you think you might need. So you might need emotional support, childcare support, practical support, social support. So nothing to do with childcare, but someone to just come and keep you company. And it's about identifying all the things you think you would need. And then one of the things is that it's very important that you tell people what support you might want, because people aren't mind readers. And a lot of women come to me to say, my friends aren't supporting me in the right way. Actually, when I ask them, they haven't said what support they needed. So we need to be in control of telling people what support we want. We can't expect them to just guess. So that's what I would say about the support network element of things.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Age, for that, of course, for explaining. And it's good to know that there are options out there. Great to hear that. And the next question, so how and when do I make the decision to stop looking for a partner to conceive naturally with and start fertility treatment without a partner?
Yeah, so this is a really common question I get. So for people who are in the very early stages of still considering, is this the right route for me? Something that I hear a lot from people is, I'm just going to give it another 6 months to meet a partner, because if I can, I would like to do this with a partner. And almost come to me to say, when do I stop just giving it another 6 months? At what time do I make that decision to just say, right, I'm going to park that to one side and go and do it on my own? What I would say is there's a couple of different things to think about. So first of all, it's a completely individual decision. It really depends on your priorities. So some women don't want to have a child without a partner, therefore they would continue to search for somebody. The second thing is your age. Again, you would need to get more information from a fertility clinic about this. And one of the things you can do is go to a clinic and have a fertility MOT, and that will give you an indication on, is this something that you might need to do quite quickly, or might you have a little bit more time? So equipping yourself with a bit more information, you can have a fertility MOT at a clinic, or you can actually have an online test sent to your house from one of the online testing companies. And each time you'll then have a consultant, a session with a consultant. They'll talk you through your fertility, and that's good information to help you decide, do I need to start straight away, or have I got a bit of time? There's no guarantee, because there's no test that tells you will definitely be able to get pregnant at a certain time, but it's information that you can help use to make a decision. And then the thing that I work through with people is letting go of the fantasy of doing this with a partner. So some people had a very clear idea they were going to embark on this journey with a partner, and they're struggling to let go of that idea and embrace the idea of doing it in a different way. So some of the things that you can work through is around how you can reframe it, and how you can understand that your life script, so how you thought your life would play out, was one way, potentially doing it with a partner, but actually circumstances mean you're going to do it in a different way, and it doesn't have to be worse, it's just different, and it's about starting to embrace doing it in that different way. So there's not a black and white answer to this. There's not a, you should stop at this point, but there's some of the things to just maybe consider when trying to make the final decision.
Perfect. Thank you so much once again for answering this. And well, next question is right here. So, will my future baby be negatively impacted by not having a father in their life?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple of things to say about this. So the first thing is to point you in the direction of some research that's been done on it. So Susan Gollenbach has written a book called Modern Families, and in that book she's done some research on the impact to children of solo mums being raised by a solo mum. Now, it's not a huge study, that there haven't been lots of studies done, but the finding from her research says that children are not impacted by being raised by a solo parent. In fact, what impacts children more is if they are involved in a divorce situation where it's not amicable. So the impact to children is almost like the stress from parents, which is sometimes associated with going through a divorce. If a solo mum also is feeling that same level of stress, that might impact as well. But she concluded, and she only studied up to the age of when the child was 7, that there isn't an impact on the child's development of being raised by a solo mum. I think the other thing to say is they don't have a father in their life, but that doesn't mean they don't have loads of amazing people in their life. So one of the things I advise people to do is to say, what would you have liked to have from a father? So what would that father have, what would you have liked your child to get from them? Where can they get that from instead? So have you got male relatives? Have you got a granddad? Have you got a brother, cousins? Have you got friends, like really close friends that you would consider? And they don't have to be male, it can be male and female, but actually nice to just specifically have some male role models in their life. And then actually, I've spoken to people who've said, you've considered more who's in your daughter's life than I have, that she has just the two of us, whereas your daughter has a whole heap of people because you've given it real thought. So yeah, that would be my advice, to see what role models you can put in place.
Perfect. Thank you once again for this. There is another question right here. So, what finances will I need in place to be able to embark on this process?
Yeah. So again, with all the questions, there's no one answer on this. It completely depends on which treatment you're having. If you need drugs, how many drugs you need. If you're going to the UK, if you're doing it in your home country or you're doing it abroad. So there's lots of different considerations of different costs. There's a really good cost calculator. So if you want a ballpark figure, Access Fertility have got a cost calculator on their website, and I sometimes point people in the direction of that, and it gives you the average cost. It is based on the UK, but it gives you the average cost of the different elements that you might need to do. And then it's depending on if you're doing IUI or IVF, how much you're going to spend on donor sperm, because there's a big range. So one of the things that I say to people is, what I have seen in the I've coached like probably easily over 100 women on this, and the stories I've heard about how people have got finances in place to be able to do this is phenomenal. So it's almost like some of the creativity, people getting second jobs, moving in with their parents, downsizing their house, moving further out of London, all sorts of things to get the savings in place to be able to make this happen. And then, yeah, if you want specifics, you would need to get the costs from your clinic after you've had the consultation, so they can give you an estimate of what that's going to cost. But the cost calculator will give you a nice average estimate, if you want a ballpark figure.
Okay, thank you again for answering this question. And next one, very important question. So, how do I choose a sperm donor?
Yeah. So again, very common question and very personal to different individuals. So with choosing a sperm donor, I think depending on the clinic you use, there's lots of different information available, and there's lots of different choices. So you can go from one clinic where they use a sperm donor where you get maybe a choice of two. You fill out a questionnaire, you say what your physical characteristics are, and they say these two meet your requirements, and it's sort of physical characteristics and maybe a letter explaining why someone donated. If you go to the other extreme, you've got pictures of them when they're a baby, pictures of them when they're an adult, a voice note, of emotional intelligence test, like every single thing you could possibly think of. And so it really depends on your preference and a little bit about how you see a donor. So some people see a donor as, a person, and they are trying to get to know that person and know as much about them as they can to make a decision. Other people view it more as, a piece of biology that needs to be there to make, for the ingredients to make a baby, if you like. And so it depends where you are on that scale of how much information you need. I've spoken to women who say, I love the fact I only had two choices. I would be overwhelmed if I was doing a spreadsheet of 100 different options. And then other women say, I prefer all the information I can possibly get. One of the things I do say is, for anyone who has been on an internet date, I have been on many, and I am an absolute romantic and an optimist. And every time I would go on an internet date, I would think, this guy is definitely the one. They sound amazing. I'm definitely going to go, I can see something happening with this guy. And of course, you meet them, and maybe that's not in real life how you feel about them. And so I would also just caution that a little bit with choosing a sperm donor. You don't get to meet the person, so you'll never fully know, and almost just getting comfortable with that. And then, yeah, just deciding what is important for me. Is it physical characteristics? Is it super important for me that the medical history, or that I can hear their voice, or whatever it might be? Choose what's important to you and then stick to that. And then often people tell me they've made a decision based on their gut feeling. This one just felt right. But there's no right or wrong way. It depends on what works for you.
Of course. Thank you so much again for that. And when we are in this kind of topic, then anonymous or non-anonymous, sperm donor.
Yeah. So something I would say in terms of anonymous or non-anonymous sperm donor, a good source of reference is the Donor Conception Network. So if you haven't heard of the Donor Conception Network, they are really specialised in donor conception. So they have some good material on this. But what I would say in terms of choosing anonymous or non-anonymous is there's 3 different things to think about. The first one is the legal side of things. So in some countries, you have to choose a release ID donor, which means that your child will get access to the information when they are 18. And so you have to first of all check the country that you're having the treatment in, what the legal requirements are. So for the UK, for example, you have to have a release ID donor. If you're going to another country to have the treatment, then you could choose an anonymous donor. So checking what legally is needed is the first thing. The second thing is about thinking about what you want for your child. So do you want to give your child the opportunity to know who that sperm donor was? So if that's something that is important to you, then that would be part of the consideration. And then the third thing is about genetic testing, and the fact that there isn't really any such thing as anonymous anymore. So with the advancements of genetic testing, it's quite possible, particularly as we go forward into the future, that you would be able to identify the donor, but maybe they thought that you wouldn't. So they've gone into it thinking it would be anonymous, but the reality is, because of genetic testing, you may be able to locate them later on. And so it's just thinking about if the person has gone in knowing that they will be able to be contacted when the child's 18, it's a slightly different mindset than going in thinking that you'll be totally anonymous. So yeah, you can do research. There's lots of information out there on this and about genetic testing and what's possible.
Excellent. Thank you so much again for explaining this to us as well. And well, now it will be time for your questions, and there are a few questions ready. So I guess we can go ahead with them. Mel, are you ready for the questions from our patients?
Hit me with them.
All right, perfect. Thank you. And now let's go to the first question. So did you find it hard to manage work and baby when the baby was born at the beginning? Because I heard the first 6 months when baby was born, you will not be able to work.
Yeah. So I think it depends how long you're having on maternity leave. So I had a corporate role and I had 9 months maternity leave. So I didn't do my corporate job for the first 9 months. But in that time, I set up my coaching business. Now, a lot of this is dependent on the type of baby you have, and there is just no predicting it. So some babies sleep really well, they sleep quite a lot, they're quite predictable, they have a routine, and then you have quite a lot of time to do work within that time. Some babies need a lot of attention, they always want to be on you, and it's very difficult to work. So partly you almost don't know until you're there. And then I think it depends if you're having a time off on maternity leave. So I very specifically allocated 9 months so I could have a break from my corporate job. But yeah, in the evenings when my daughter was asleep, I then worked, and from about 3 months, I definitely had quite a lot of time free in the evenings to do that.
Okay, excellent. So it is possible. You can definitely manage, right? Perfect. Thank you so much. And there's another question right here. So I live in Dubai, so I need to return to Europe to become a planned single mom. I'm Irish, but I have a place in Spain. Would you recommend moving home in terms of a sports network, or maybe the first few years at home? I love what you're doing. Well, thank you.
Thank you. Personal preference. So it depends what sort of person you are, how much you think you'll be able to build up a support network where you are. So if you have a really good support network at home, I know many women who've moved home, even moved in with their parents, and have found it a really big help. I lived in Budapest and I moved to Manchester, and my parents are an hour away. So I do get help one night a week from my parents. But I've built my support network just from being here and interacting and really focusing on how do I build that support network. So it depends how much support you'd have at home, how important it is for them to be there. Would they come and visit you if you lived somewhere else? Lots of different considerations, but the more support you have, the easier it is. So for sure, don't underestimate how much easier it makes your life if you have that support.
Excellent. Thank you so much once again for this. And now let's have a look at the next question. Very interesting. I do not have a family member who could be at birth who I actually would want to be there in the lead up to the birth and during the birth. Are those a good option in your option, Mel? What are the other options? Anything you can advise?
Yeah, so many of the women I coach use a doula. So I haven't got personal experience, but I know a lot of women have used a doula and have been really super pleased with them. So you can spend time with them beforehand. You can make sure that they know what support you need. So I've had really good feedback from women who have used a doula, and they've said that it's been really good support. The other option is to just choose someone else from your support network. So if you've got a friend, or if you've got someone that you know that would like to be there, you can also ask them. Quite a few women ask 2 people. So it can be, when I was in labour, I was there for sort of 3 days before anything happened because I was being induced. So that's quite a lot to ask one person. You might be asking one person who doesn't live close to you, so you have someone who's closer as well who can sort of help and share. So you can definitely ask more than one. And then some people ask a friend and a doula. So they've got the doula to help them with, who's really got the experience, but then they've got a friend for maybe some of the more emotional support. So that's also an option.
Okay. Thank you so much once again for that. And if you could tell us a bit, maybe you can help out with that, okay? I would like to know if you tried IUI before going to IVF. Did you use a UK clinic or clinic abroad? Anything you could advise?
Yeah, so I didn't try IUI, and this was a completely personal decision. So let me tell you a little bit about my circumstances. So I was working abroad. I worked in Budapest, but I'm from the UK. So I did have my treatment abroad, but weirdly, almost like in the reverse way, because I lived in Budapest and I had my treatment in Manchester. So I was flying back for treatment. So I've had that experience of having treatment in a different country. It's just that the country was the UK, if that makes sense. The reason I didn't try IUI first was twofold. One was because just me personally managing my emotional journey, I wanted to give myself the best opportunity of it working first time, and the statistics that IVF to be successful are higher than IUI. So I had saved some money and I thought I'm going to go straight to IVF to give myself the best chance. I know plenty of women who've tried IUI first and it's been successful, and then women who've tried IUI and then moved on to IVF. There's no easy way to make the decision. I did a webinar with Reproductive Health Group and Luciano Nardo, who talks a little bit about some of the considerations of how to choose IUI and IVF, which might be interesting for you to look at. Yeah, personally, I went straight to IVF, and then my experience was I had 3 embryos, and my daughter was born on the 2nd embryo transfer. The other thing about IVF is if you want a sibling later on, you've potentially got more embryos to try for a sibling. And then the other reason I personally chose it is because I was having treatment abroad, because I was flying back to the UK, and IVF was easier to manage the timings and easier to plan when I was traveling abroad. And also I wanted to minimize the amount of times I had to travel abroad, and I thought I would have more chance to do that with IVF. I would potentially have to have more tries at IUI. So that was my personal experience. And then clinics abroad. One of the things is I have a Facebook group called the Stork and I Mum Tribe, and there's loads of discussion on there about the different clinics that people have used. So the one that comes up the most is Serum in Athens. I have no personal experience of it, but if you go onto the Facebook group and search, there's lots of personal stories about clinics that have been used by different solo mums. So that might be helpful for you.
Of course. Perfect. Thank you so much. And actually, there's a follow-up question from the very same patient. So let me just go ahead, okay? So how many times did you try, and how many times is enough to give up?
Yeah. So I was very lucky because I did one round of IVF, got 3 embryos, and then did just on the 2nd embryo transfer had my daughter. So that is, I know, very lucky. I had a relatively straightforward journey. There's no answer on how many times is enough to give up. It's completely a personal preference. Again, maybe speak to some other people who've done multiple rounds and get some advice in terms of how long they've continued to try for. I think it depends on your finances. It depends on how much it's impacting your mental health. It depends on how much it's impacting you physically. And it depends on having a look at what your other options might be and whether you can embrace a different route to parenthood. So yeah, and I think speaking to people who've gone through multiple rounds can also be really helpful.
Perfect. Thank you once again for that. And there are more questions. Okay, this is something I will show you. Can you repeat what is the name of the Facebook group that you were mentioning?
Yes, it's called the Stork and I Mum Tribe. So you just search for that in Facebook, and then you have to answer a few questions just to say you are considering solo motherhood, and then you can be approved to be part of it.
Perfect. Thank you so much for this. And there's another question here. Did you find difficulty financially to raise a child yourself? Is there more extra cost?
Yeah. So the cost, I would say, that was difficult is the treatment. But I had been considering solo motherhood for a long time. So my advice to anyone who's considering is start saving now. Save as much money as you possibly can for the treatment. So I had saved money, which I used to pay for the treatment. In terms of raising a child, again, we talk about this in a lot of the coaching courses that I do, and it very much depends on, you can spend a little money or you can spend a lot of money. So there's ways to, if you're preparing to have a baby, Facebook Marketplace, getting hand-me-downs, swapping. We do clothes swaps. So, you don't have to spend a lot of money on that sort of stuff. The big cost is childcare. So it's very much having a look at what childcare options you might have, what that might cost, and would you be able to pay for that out of your current monthly income. Again, you can get creative. So I've had solo mums who have decided to move in together to share childcare costs. Like I said, moving in with parents. So there's lots of things you can do. One of the things I did is I reduced my working week so that I only have to have 3 days of childcare to reduce the cost. So actually condensed it, so continue to work the same amount of hours but under less days. So there's things you can do to try to minimize it. But childcare, I think, is the key consideration to research how much that would be where you live.
All right, perfect. Thank you once again for that, because actually there are more questions regarding this topic, of course, financial aspect. So let me just show you if you could add anything. Hi, Mel, what was your process if you had to financially prepare for the solo mom journey? You already have explained, of course, but anything else you could advise?
So saving beforehand, doing a budget, seeing how long I could have on maternity leave, budgeting to see how much money I would get in, planning how much money I would spend, and planning how long I could have on maternity leave, and then researching childcare costs and options and seeing what I could do there are probably the 3 things that I did beforehand. But saving, as soon as I thought, I think I'm going to do this, saving as much as I can to help as well.
Okay, perfect. Thank you once again for this. And how about what are the benefits of going abroad? Is it just a financial consideration? You have done it a bit differently, but anything you could advise?
I think I'm probably not the best person to advise on going abroad. It's not really my area of expertise. I think there's probably other areas where you can find more information. Again, on the Stork and I Mum Tribe, there's plenty of people who've been abroad, so they can give you they can give you a lot of information. The main reason that the solo mum community go that I'm aware of has been financial. It's been cheaper. Of course, now you need to be very careful around whether it would be financial, because we don't really know how easy it will be to fly, and that cost might go up. So it's a bit trickier at the moment. But yeah, the main reason people have shared with me that they're considering going abroad has been financial.
Okay, excellent. Thank you once again for that. And do you have moments when you are sad that you're not sharing the joy of your child with a partner? And how do you overcome that?
Yeah, I very rarely, honestly, because I really have reframed this for my situation. So I'm not sharing the joy of my child with one person, I'm sharing it with a multitude of people. So I talk very much about my family. My family is the people I've created in my family. Some of them are my relations, many of them are very close friends of mine. I have many different people that share this journey with me, that support me, that spend time with me, that are role models for my daughter. So it's really about trying to reframe and not focusing on what you're missing from having one person, but what you're gaining from having a multitude of people. Yeah, that's how I think about it. It's very easy occasionally when you're having a bad day or something's difficult to fantasize about how it might be with a partner. Preferably Ryan Reynolds. I'm sure my life would be amazing if he was in my life. But I do think some of it is also a fantasy. With a partner becomes different challenges. So I also think that there's pros and cons of both scenarios, and it's so I don't often feel sad. I really try and let my extended family into my life and share it with the people I love, and I'm not focusing on something that's missing. I'm focusing on everything that's there.
Perfect. Thank you once again for that. Definitely sounds reassuring and, well, definitely gives some hope, I believe, as well. And so, if you could share with us what was the hardest thing in your solo journey?
Personally, for me, the hardest thing was making the decision to do it. So and that's why I now coach other women in this, because the hardest thing for me was letting go of the fairy tale of meeting my Prince Charming, doing this in a more conventional way, worrying what people would think about me. It was really making that final decision that this was the right decision for me. So that was probably the hardest thing, and reframing everything so that this decision is the best decision I've ever made, and it's as positive as it would have been doing it with a partner. It's just different. And there's a lovely quote that I always share that says, just because things could have been different doesn't mean they'd be better. For anyone who follows me on my Instagram, I posted a beautiful post of that, and I really do try to remember that. Things could have been different, but it doesn't mean they could have been better. And in hindsight, I look back and think this was definitely the right decision for me, the right route for me. But getting to that point did take me some time, and I had to let go of the idea of how I thought I would do it.
All right, perfect. Thank you once again for that. Okay, this is definitely another question. So, do you plan to tell your child truth about her conception?
Yeah, so I absolutely do. I already have. So again, this is where the Donor Conception Network has got lots of useful information. So they've got some books that they've written. I also shared a book that's just been written on my Instagram, I think yesterday. So there's plenty of books that describe how to tell a child about their conception. So it's something that we talk about all the time. I talk to her just about families in general. I've got a book of like diverse families. So we talk about the different types of family. And then I talk to her about the donor. And I've actually made a book which goes through our family. And then at the back, it has the information we know about the donor. She's too young to understand, but the thought is that you start telling them from a very young age, and then they understand when they understand, but that it's not a secret. It's something to be completely honest about. I'm very proud of it. I hope that she will be very proud of it too.
Perfect. Thank you so much again for answering this question. And there are more questions coming, and well, let's go ahead. So, did you find it hard telling people that you were conceiving via donor? Was there any negativity?
Yeah, this is a question that we talk through on the coaching course that I run. So the anxiety about thinking about doing it, I was nervous, but actually when I did it, I was like, oh, this was actually, why was I anxious about this? And this is what I also share with the people who come on my coaching course. So I just got one sentence that said, I've decided to have a baby on my own because I thought I might miss out on motherhood if not. And it's literally as simple as that. And then people you're close to, you might want to tell them everything. People that you don't want to know any more information, you just leave it as that. And I had overwhelming positivity from people to say, good on you, yeah, good empowered decision. I have one person in my life who disagreed with the decision, and actually it impacted our friendship. But one out of a multitude of people, the vast majority of people were very, very supportive.
All right, thank you. And actually, this is definitely a question that we have another one. So, did your parents, siblings find it hard, right? So, it's very important to know that.
So my parents were very much involved in the decision-making process. So I didn't spring it on them and say, I'm having a baby on my own. I said, over a period of probably 2 years, if I don't meet someone, I'm thinking of this as an option. What do you think? And so they sort of came on the journey with me. I think some people do all that thinking on their own and then tell their parents or siblings, and they then are shocked because it's just come completely out of the blue. So my advice to people is, don't expect a positive reaction if you tell them, because if they haven't had time to, it could be out of the blue for them. I'm really sorry, I've got some background noise. So yeah, if you can take them on the journey with you a little bit. But I do think the anxiety of telling parents, close family, close friends is usually worse than the reality. And any negativity is usually out of concern for you. And sometimes they just need a little bit of time to consider it and come to terms with it.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much again for explaining that. And well, this is another question. Has your dating life dried up now that you have a child?
So I think I am a little bit unusual in this. So I'll give you my experience, but I'll also tell you what some of my other coaching clients say. So for me, I decided to go on my first date when my daughter was 12 weeks old. Just partly out of curiosity to see what would it be like, could I still do it. So what I tell people is, if you want to and if you choose to, you absolutely can date in exactly the same way you used to before. Some people may not want to date someone with a child. Plenty of people do. So you probably wouldn't want to be dating someone who didn't want to date someone with a child. So it's almost exactly the same as it was before I had my daughter. There's times where I think, yeah, I'm going to do this, and I put effort in and I go on dates. And then there's times where I think, oh, I've got a lot of other things going on and not into this. So very similar to before. It's harder, I guess. The practical element is, when do you go on dates? So getting childcare and prioritizing, like, do you really want to use any sort of precious time off to go on a date? It depends if you enjoy dating or not, really. But in terms of being able to, I think it's absolutely possible. Now, when I share that story with other people, they're like, there's no way I would have gone on a date when my child was 12 weeks old, but that's their personal preference. And so others maybe start looking when their child's 1.5, 2. But again, up to each individual. So it's certainly possible.
Excellent. That is definitely good to hear. Excuse me. And there's another question right here. Okay. So I'm very sensitive to the lack of sleep, so worried how to manage that. I have heard about sleep training, and also I am thinking that I might need to spend a large chunk of my salary to have a babysitter spending the night every third day or something like that. Any tips on what to do about this issue?
Yeah, so I think this is absolutely the hardest thing, particularly at the beginning. So I think, firstly, preparing yourself. So being prepared that you probably will have a lack of sleep, and that can be tough. So as not to have unrealistic expectations. I think the second thing is around, with your support network, seeing if there is anyone guiding people. That one of the things you would want help with is, could maybe someone come and do an early morning, or is there anyone who could do an overnight for you, or even come in the day and let you have a sleep then. So guiding people on what would be helpful for you, because many people don't know. You can do sleep training. So I'm not an expert on sleep training, although I did have a sleep consultant to help me try to get my daughter into a routine. I've shared her details on my Instagram, but there's plenty of people who do that. So you can read a book about how to do it, or you can get someone to help you. And so from the guidance that I was told is from 6 months, you can maybe start doing that. But again, I'm not an expert. There's lots of different views on it. And then I know some women who do spend quite a bit of money, particularly at the beginning, having somebody stay overnight so they can get a full night's sleep. And you can get someone to come at sort of 10 p.m. just as you're going to bed, and then leave at 6 a.m., 7 a.m. So that's definitely possible, and it's not cheap, but particularly at the beginning, it can be worth prioritizing, particularly if you know that you need a lot of sleep.
All right, perfect. Once again, huge thank you for that. Okay, and if you could repeat, because you have mentioned someone has done an online presentation on IUI versus IVF.
Yes. So I did a webinar with Reproductive Health Group. So if you go on the website of Reproductive Health Group, they've done a series of webinars. So Luciano Nardo is the consultant from there. So you can see the webinar that we did together. And actually, it was about solo motherhood, but I was asking him some of the medical questions that I knew the solo mums wanted the answer to. So it complements this quite well because that gives the medical advice.
Excellent. Thank you so much for again repeating that, so that our patients can just can of course find it. And all right. And so, did you feel very nervous about going into childbirth without a partner?
So I personally didn't, because I went in with my mum was my birth partner, and we'd planned what role she was going to have. I'm very close to my mum anyway, so I knew that she would be able to support me. So what I always try to say is, it's you haven't got a romantic partner necessarily, but that doesn't mean that you won't have anyone in there supporting you. So it's trying to find the best person to be able to support you. And if you don't have anyone in your network, then a doula, I think, is a good suggestion, and you can build up your relationship with them beforehand, so that so that you know them and that you do feel you're well supported. So it's about getting that right person in there, so you have got someone to support you.
Excellent. Perfect. And there's another question, very short one. So, are you planning another baby?
So I have a frozen embryo. My personal decision is that probably I think I would find it difficult to have two children without a partner. So for the moment, I'm thinking probably not. I do know plenty of solo mums who have got two. Again, on the Stalk and I Mum Tribe group, there's quite a few women who've got two, so you can definitely get advice from them. I've also, on my website, there's a list of podcasts from solo mums, and there's two podcasts in particular where the women have got two children, and they talk about the decision to have a second child. So probably for me, I don't think it's the right decision, but I do know many women who have gone on to have another one.
All right. Again, thank you so much. Okay, and there are like 2-3 questions left, so we'll be slowly finishing, but I want to encourage anyone that has any questions left, go ahead and type it in. And just if you could repeat the calculator you have mentioned as well.
Yeah, I think I can just see it in the notes, actually. Someone's put the link to it.
Okay.
That's the one exactly I was talking to.
Okay, so here it is.
Yeah.
accessfertility.com.
Yeah.
An IVF cost calculator. All right. Perfect. Thank you again for this. And next question is right here. A friend of mine is having a baby in 6 weeks and can't even tie her shoe herself. Are there lots of things that would make it difficult towards the end of pregnancy if you don't have a partner?
I mean, I guess it depends on the personal experience. For me, I mean, I was very tired. I was maybe a little bit grumpy. I didn't do too much, but there wasn't anything physical that was an issue. I think if it does get to that stage, again, it would be looking who's in your support network and seeing if anyone can come and help you. But again, one of the things that I take people through is about this comparison of someone who's got a partner, because many times, even if you have a partner, they may be working all day anyway, or they're not available to help with some of those sorts of things. So it can be quite good to try to not do the comparison of what would it be like if I had a partner. But if there's specific things that you need as you get towards the end of your pregnancy, I guess it's identifying them and seeing if anyone can help you. But no, I didn't need any specific help personally.
Okay, thank you.
And in fact, even more than that, I'd moved from London to Manchester. I was redecorating and renovating a house. I'd started a new job. Like, I was, not making life easy for myself. So to the last couple of weeks, I was trying to take it super easy, but I was still trying to finish off renovating my house. So, but other people, it would depend on your health a little bit in terms of, some people suffer more with pregnancy.
Okay, understood. Perfect. Thank you so much once again. And well, you have mentioned your support group, but if you could add it anything else. When I'm pregnant, how can I start to build up a relationship with other local single moms and other moms, especially locally?
Yeah, so there's quite a few different ways. So I would say one way, if you go, I'm not plugging this. If you go onto the Stalk and I Mum Tribe, the pinned top at the post at the top is WhatsApp groups. There is a London WhatsApp group, and that's other women who are in the same position. And so London is actually a brilliant place to be because there's such a higher amount of people. I've mentioned before the Donor Conception Network, so they also run groups for solo mums. So if you go and check them out, you can join a London solo mum group through them. There's other apps. There's Frollo. You may have heard of Frollo. It's a single parents app. So that also, London is the best place. Again, it's where the most people have joined the app. So it connects you with other single parents. Not donor mums necessarily, although there are some, but just people with children the same age who don't have a partner. Antenatal classes. So I recommend to everybody to go to an antenatal class because that is how you meet people with children who are going to be exactly the same age. Going to all of the mum and baby classes. There's a really good app called Mush, which is meeting other mums in your local area. When you're on maternity leave, it doesn't really matter if you're single or not because usually it's the women who are in the day off work and socializing. So everyone's in the same situation anyway. So yeah, that's some of my top tips about how to do it.
Excellent. Thank you so much once again. And well, one more thing. Sorry, it's right here. So the WhatsApp group you've mentioned, is it just for people who have conceived, or can you be at any point in their journey?
Yeah, no, there's ones for every point in the journey. So there's ones for thinkers and triers, it's called, and then there's ones for people who have had a baby. And usually, I think when people get pregnant, they move over into the other one, or stay in both. So that there's different ones for the different stages, but there's something for everyone in there, basically.
Okay, perfect. And question which is next is right here. So when you go for treatment, are you offered counseling?
Yeah, so it would depend on the country that you're going in, but in the UK, it's mandatory to go for a counselling session if you are using donor conception. So yes, you would be offered. In some clinics, they offer one session. In some clinics, they extend it to more sessions. And I was actually speaking to the counselling, ABICA, the British Infertility Counselling Association, about this very topic, because some women were saying that when they go for the counselling, they're not sure if they're being tested or if they're being counselled and supported. And what she said is that you should use that as a proper counselling session and go through your genuine anxieties and concerns. It's absolutely normal to have things that you would want to discuss. It would only be in an absolutely extreme case where someone had a fear for the safety of a potential future child or for yourself that would intervene. So we shouldn't think of that as a test. It's absolutely there to be used to talk through anything that's on your mind.
Okay, and of course, this is important question. As you can see, we have a similar. Will my local fertility clinic facilitate or put me in touch with all the solo moms?
Yeah, so probably not, because partly because of data protection, partly because it depends if you might have used the same donor, depending on which clinic you're using. So usually they don't. Many of the clinics will recommend that you meet other solo mums through the Donor Conception Network or the Stork and I Mum Tribe, and then I think there's a few other groups, but probably your clinic won't facilitate that.
All right. Again, huge thank you. And well, can you recommend any websites for choosing a clinic or sperm bank?
So the HFEA in the UK have got impartial advice about how to choose a clinic. Certainly, I'm not sure if they've got one about choosing a sperm bank, but the HFEA, for people who haven't heard of that before, they are an independent body in the UK who go through the sorts of things you might want to think about, and how all the clinics compare against each other. It's also something I run a coaching course called Choosing Solo, and that's also something we do in that. It's just a 3-week course where we cover some of the emotional aspects and some of the practical aspects. And I think I've seen quite a few different articles giving advice. And again, the Stork and I Mum Tribe, there's loads of discussions on which clinics people have used and which sperm banks people have used and what the experience is. So if you're looking for like solo mums advice, that's a good source of input as well.
Excellent. Thank you so much for this again. And it seems that this is our last question for today. But if you have any left, well, you know what to do. So the question is, how old were you when you had your daughter?
Yeah. So I was 36 when I decided to do it. And then I was 37 by the time that I had my treatment. And then I was 39 when I actually gave birth, because I had a bit of a break between the first embryo transfer and the second embryo transfer. So 39 when I actually gave birth, but 37 when I had the egg collection, which is, I suppose, the important date. And I was just 39, I think, when so it was just over a year later.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Mel, for all the information, for all the tips, for sharing also your story, because I definitely think it's inspiring for all those women out there, for our patients for sure as well. So huge thank you for joining us tonight. We will be finishing for today, but as you know, if you would like to get in touch with Mel and simply get in touch with some other single moms, it is also possible. You can simply use the support group and on Facebook, of course. Just to confirm it, yes, it's the Stork and my Mom Tribe, right, Mel?
That's
Perfect.
it. Yeah.
You also have it in the chat section, but I just wanted to remind everyone it's right there. And thank you to all of you, yes, for joining us tonight, for your questions. I hope that it was useful, but from what I see, there are many comments, which I would love to show you, Mel. So just give me a second. It's lots of those. So very helpful. Thank you for sharing. Thank you so
Oh,
much for your advice.
brilliant. Not a problem at all. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Is there anything you would like to add?
No, just if you want any more advice, any more questions, probably Instagram is the place I'm most active. So try to answer all my DMs on Instagram. And a lot of this information is available on my website, which is thestalkandI.com. So yeah, you can get more information there.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And I just sent you a link. You can also use this link to get in touch with Mel, and she will be able to simply help you out, I am sure. And you will also find this event, this live event on this particular website, and all of our events can be found on myivfanswers.com. So go ahead and check it out. There are plenty of other topics I'm sure you are wondering and looking for, so go ahead and check it out. Plus, if you follow us on YouTube channel or Facebook or Instagram, you will be updated about all upcoming events. As you know, we have another event tonight at 8 p.m. UK time, so I can only encourage you to join us later on as well. And once again, Mel, thank you so much again for supporting our initiative, for being our ambassador as well, and for your event, for being with us tonight, and for all the information, tips, and well, for sharing your story. That
No worries.
definitely helps.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Have a lovely evening, everyone. Have a
Bye.
lovely evening, Mel, as well. And I hope we will be able to do it again. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.